Have you been trying to make lifestyle changes to improve your health but struggling to do so? Are you currently fighting a disease and wish you could go back in time and prevent it? Dr. John Clark presents a health series, Blueprint for Health and Healing, Reversing Disease from its Foundation. Every Sunday in May from 8 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time on Zoom and live streamed on Ministering Across Culture's international YouTube channel. He will be discussing topics such as diabetes, cholesterol, hypertension, and weight management. This is for everyone. We look forward to seeing you, and remember to invite a friend. Let's get our health in check now and start living life abundantly.
Okay, so for the entire month of May, we have in the health series, and you did notice on the ad that there was a book, and Dr. Clark has written that book. That book is available. Maybe he'll tell us a little bit more about that book later on. We will be also using it on our mission trip to Kenya, because there they will be doing a MM program, right? A medical missionary program, and that will be inclusive in the resources used. Very, very good book. And the author of that book is here today to tell us more about not just what's in the book, but also about how we can be helped. Dr. Clark is a health educator. He is a medical doctor, a graduate of the Loma Linda School of Medicine, University School of Medicine. His wife and his son, Connor, they're in ministry together. They've been in ministry a long time. They have ministered in Australia and other places, and he is no stranger to this platform. Dr. Clark has visited us. So he has done a few presentations here before. He told us about his journey and how finance is important, and how they move from one location to another, and how God has been guided, and how there was satisfaction not in the big job that he held before, but rather in this present ministry where they are actually reaching out to others, gospel of Jesus Christ in this medical form, and getting real satisfaction. Today, he's here to educate us on a specific area, Blueprint for Health and Healing. And he will tell us all about it. Dr. Clark, all over to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dawn. It's good to be here this morning. And I'll get my screen share up and going here so I can have my PowerPoint. There we go. My topic this morning is diabetes, and this is the first chapter in the book. Those of you who have the book or have gone online, and on my website, which is rev14.com, Revelation 14, where the three angels' messages are, rev14.com. If you go there, you can download the topic of diabetes as a PDF, or you can, if you scroll down on the first page, you can download a PDF of the actual book with this as the first chapter. It's the same document either way. The reason I put diabetes first, and the reason it's important for people doing international medical missionary work, is that diabetes is on the rise worldwide. It largely follows the exportation of the Western diet to other countries. For example, India, as they start eating more and more foods like people in Europe and in America, they start getting more of the diseases that the Europeans and Americans have. And diabetes is one of these. In the islands, more and more people getting obese and getting diabetes. And so I've titled the topic today, Diabetes, the Butter with the Sweet. Now, in English, we have this saying that sometimes we get the bitter with the sweet. Kind of reflecting on the fact that in life there's good things and bad things, and they both come together, and the bitter is the bad and the sweet's the good. But here I'm saying the butter with the sweet, and in the picture there we have a chunk of butter with a sweet roll in the background. And you'll see why I have titled this topic, The Butter with the Sweet, by the time we get to the end of this discussion. March 1, 1954, the United States government was testing bombs, atom bombs, in the South Pacific and the Marshall Islands. They had gained control of the Marshall Islands. The Marshall Islands were a territory of the United States. And the United States decided one of the islands would be a good place to test bombs. And this was sort of an agreement between some of the leaders of the Marshallese and the United States, but it affected everybody. Because when they blew off these bombs, it ended up blowing roofs off of houses, palm fronds off of palm trees. And the people got upset and they sued the government. And so the United States said, okay, we'll give you all some cash, some money. Well, what do you do with the United States dollars out in the middle of nowhere in the South Pacific Island? And so they had to start importing things for people to spend the money on. And this meant that a lot of foods came over from America. It changed the dietary habits of a whole nation. Pretty soon they had a bigger bomb on their hand than the atom bomb. They had the junk food bomb. And the junk food bomb was crinkly bags, foods in crinkly bags. It included things that weren't in their traditional diet. Their traditional diet had been fruits and vegetables and fish. And now they were eating Spam, frozen turkey tails, convenience foods high in fat, salt, and sugar, but low, very low in nutrition. And so an entire nation changed their diet. The results? Well, guess what? Type 2 diabetes was almost unheard of in the South Pacific Islands before the dietary changes that followed World War II and the bomb testing. Unheard of. Unheard of. Then that's change in diet, and 30% of the people over the age of 15, 50% over the age of 50 had diabetes. And the things that go with diabetes: high blood pressure, cardiovascular disease, kidney and eye disease, and lots of sores and wounds and amputations. So this was a drastic change. And, you might be thinking, that's an amazing change for people to change their diet and end up with this disease. So what we want to talk about is natural, safe blood sugar control. I used to treat people conventionally as one of my patients. And now I do lifestyle medicine, God's medicine, right? Maximizing your health. That's our goal. So your probability of getting sick is much lower. I've been doing this since 2006. And this has been a great blessing. What lifestyle improvements would it take for you to avoid or reverse diabetes? That's the question we want to answer. And here's where we're headed, an outline. I'm going to talk about obesity and fats. I'm going to talk about sugar and fiber. I'll talk about exercise and drinking water. And so that will be where we will be heading. Now, as I said, diabetes is on the increase in America. The number of diabetics is steadily headed upward, but we've sort of, been on our diet for a long time. If I had a chart here of, say, India, it would be more like an exponential graph, a low in the beginning and going very high toward the end. And this is an interesting increase. So changes are happening. Now, some people say, well, my mom was diabetic, my grandmother was diabetic, therefore I'll probably be diabetic. And it does seem to run in families, But in essence, what's going on is we have families that are adopting their parents' lifestyle. Because if it was in the genetics, what happened to the Marshallese? I mean, they inherited it from the Americans, but you can't inherit something from another unrelated people group. And so what you really inherit is the lifestyle. Now, I want to talk a little bit about the history of diabetes. History going back quite a few years. In fact, the earliest records of diabetes comes from the pyramids in Egypt, dating back to 1552 BC. About the time that there might have been some Israelites out there doing the work to build those pyramids. And so it's very fascinating that the Egyptians had diabetes, and when God released the Israelites from Egypt, gave them their emancipation, got their exodus, that he told them, if thou will diligently hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God, and do that which is right in his sight, and keep all his commandments and his statutes, he says, I'll put none of these diseases upon thee, which I've brought upon the Egyptians, for I am the Lord that healeth thee. So apparently he had told them something that if they'd follow it, they could totally avoid the diabetes that the Egyptians had. And so as we go along, you'll realize what that was, and we'll come back to that. First of all, what is diabetes? Well, diabetes is too much sugar in the blood, too much sugar in the urine. And how much is too much? Well, in the United States, we use a system that puts a normal blood sugar between 70 and 99. I know in other countries they use a different scale, but for now we'll use the United States scale. And so if your blood sugar goes over 99, then we say you are pre-diabetic. Now, pre-diabetic sort of implies that you're headed toward diabetes, and that is the case. Most pre-diabetics go on to diabetes, which is a fasting blood sugar, taking your blood first thing in the morning, and finding that the sugar is over 126 or 125. So here we have the way we at least do a screening test for diabetes. So in other countries, you might have a normal range of 3.6 to 6.0, and then as it's just a different computation. And pre-diabetes would be 6.1 to 6.9, and diabetes would be over 7. So it depends on which scale you're using, and you probably have to look at the scale in your country to make sure, because there can be other scales too. But those are the most common popular ones right there. So why do you want to avoid diabetes? Well, I sort of alluded to it with the Marshallese. When they got diabetes, they also got other things. And I mentioned amputations, and you see diabetes makes your risk of having an amputation go up by 10 times. 10 times. 10 times the risk of getting ulcers on your feet and having your feet and legs chopped off. And at one time we were out in Maryland, the United States, doing lectures. We were at a host's house, and next door a lady came walking out of her house with a medical boot on her foot. We looked at the medical boot and we said, "Oh, what happened to you?" She says, "Well, I've got a diabetic foot ulcer, and I'm going to have possibly a surgery to amputate the front of my foot." We said, "Oh, that's terrible. Can we help you?" She says, "Sure." And so we went into her house with her, and we started doing hot and cold treatments on her feet. And then we put a charcoal poultice on the wound, and did that each day. One day we put on a fig poultice, fresh fig poultice, and it cleaned up the wound nicely. By the end of the week, her foot was looking so much better. When she went back to her doctor, the doctor said, "Oh, well, we're not going to put you on the surgery list yet. Looks like your foot's getting better. And we gave her a lot of advice about lifestyle changes, such as are in this lecture, to help her keep from getting more problems due to high blood sugars. So heart disease and stroke kill 80% of diabetics. A lot of them, 3/4, get high blood pressure. It's the #1 cause of blindness within the United States, 24,000 cases of blindness each year. And this is very serious because they start out to get macular degeneration or retinopathy or other things in the eyes, and blindness is very, very disabling. It affects the nerves with pain or numbness in the hands or feet. This is something that we'll talk about how to reverse as we go along. And it affects the mood, personality changes. We had a gentleman who decided that his wife was very hard to live with, that she just couldn't be tolerated any longer, decided to divorce her. And they were in their retirement age. And so we checked his blood sugar and found out it was a little too high. So we got him on a good lifestyle program, as we'll be reviewing here. He got his blood sugars under control, decided his wife wasn't so bad after all, decided to keep her. And he did. And they were a very nice couple. All right, so let's look at some studies on diabetes and what to do about it. They took a bunch of people who were pre-diabetic, already in that category. Blood sugar's going a little too high. And they put them in 3 groups to study them to see if they could stop them from getting diabetes. Those who had nothing done, called the placebo group, they're in the first column, had a very high incidence of diabetes. We'll use them as the standard. And the next group were given medications. Medications such as metformin, glyburide, that kind of thing, to see if medication would stop their progression to diabetes. All right, guys, here's some pills. See what happens. When they did that, it reduced the incidence of diabetes by 31%. In other words, out of 100 people, 31 fewer came down with diabetes. Well, that's all right for the 31, but how about the other 69? It means that a bunch of people still got diabetes. The third group, they didn't give a medication, but they had lifestyle changes. Those who got lifestyle changes saw a 58% reduction in the incidence of diabetes. 58%. Well, that's real good if you are in those 58, and that's over half. And so, you know what that tells me? Lifestyle interventions, lifestyle changes are a much more powerful medical intervention than is pills. I mean, it makes sense. It wasn't pills that caused diabetes in the first place. It was lifestyle. And so what were their lifestyle changes? Well, they had them losing weight. The goal was 7% of their weight. They had them exercising every day. And they had them improve their eating with more fiber, less fat, and less refined carbohydrates. And so there's 3 interventions: do nothing, medications, or lifestyle. So when you have a choice between, a get-by solution or the best solution for you or your family or your friends, which one do you want? Well, and what about the drugs? What about insulin? What about using these different medications to save you from getting high blood sugar? It's very interesting that did a study to see if they could keep people's blood sugars perfect. They did a 4-year study. They checked their blood sugar more often than usual. They gave them medications or insulin quite frequently. At the end of the study, sure enough, they had controlled the blood sugars, but the death rate increased by 20%. Drugs are not the answer. Drugs will not keep you alive. It killed 20%. That's because those drugs have side effects. And those drugs, they're sort of a a mutual admiration society. They support one another. I mean, just look at the statistics. If you start taking a cholesterol pill for your high cholesterol, you'll get diabetes. You start taking diabetes pills and your B12 will go down. You'll get Alzheimer's, all because you think the pills are the answer. That one pill supports another pill. Your risk of getting diabetes goes up by 70% with the use of cholesterol-lowering drugs. And so you don't want to get on that train. That train isn't headed in the right direction. Healthy people don't need drugs. Most people like to be healthy. So the question is, what does it take to be healthy? And that's where we're headed here. Now, here's a couple of men shaking hands and of different weight and body build. Who do you think has the higher risk of diabetes in this picture? You're right, the man in the dark blue coat. Why? He's overweight. How much overweight? Well, if you look at his waist to circumference, let's compare the two. The guy in the light colored clothing has probably got a waist circumference of 32. The guy in the yellow shirt with the dark blue jacket probably has a waist circumference of 42, 10 inches difference. For a 10-inch difference in waist circumference, we're talking a 60% higher risk of diabetes. The heavier you are, the higher your risk of diabetes. On the other hand, as you lose weight, you begin to reverse that risk to where if you can achieve your ideal body weight, that'll reduce your risk of diabetes by about the same amount. The weight is the problem. Why is weight the problem? Why would obesity increase diabetes? Well, let's look at a physiology slide here. This is a capillary across the bottom. The capillary is a blood vessel with is so small that only one red blood cell at a time can go through it. Here I've got red blood cells pictured. And so in your body, capillaries carry red blood cells, and cells sit right on the capillary so that the cells can pick up nutrients and oxygen from the bloodstream and give off their waste products. Now, I'm going to picture insulin receptors as a little black upside down Y is here. And this is like, you see the cell, the normal cell, has one insulin receptor down in the bloodstream. It's sort of like a doorknob. Insulin will be like the doorkeeper. And the insulin, when it binds to the insulin receptor, opens the door and sugar moves into the cell. Pictured here with a white arrow. And so the sugar will move out of the bloodstream and the cell will use the sugar for metabolism. That's the normal process. Notice there's only one receptor down in the bloodstream. The cell isn't that hungry. If the cell was fully hungry, it would put all the receptors down in the bloodstream. But since the cell isn't that hungry, it only puts down one. Now, the person you might find starts overeating, they start gaining weight, the cells get really big. When the cells get overfed and overfull, they pull all their insulin receptors inside. When they pull all their insulin receptors inside, the insulin has no doorknobs to open, the sugar has no doors to go through, the sugar accumulates in the bloodstream, and the blood sugar goes up. Too much blood sugar. High blood sugar, and the sugar gives you the complications. Now, what makes the cells get overfed? Well, what overfeeds the cells is calories. We call it calories or kilojoules. Calories are our measure of a food's amount of energy or amount of food value. And so if the cell gets overfed, well, what has lots of calories? How many calories does 1 gram of sugar have? Well, it has 4 calories. How many calories does 1 gram of fat have? Well, it has 9 calories. So both of these will fill up the cell. Both of them can make you obese, but which one's going to make you obese faster? Which is going to fill the cell up faster? Well, the fat's going to fill it up faster. I mean, you can get obese on either one. You can gain too much weight on either one. You can get, yeah, and so beware of that. But it'll be the fat that'll probably make you diabetic faster than the sugar. So fat's a big issue. Sugar will make you diabetic too because you gain weight, but it takes a little longer. And so just think about fat. We'll get back to fat. So the diabetic comes to lecture, they listen to Dr. Clark, and they start exercising. When they start exercising, the cells get hungry again. When the cells get hungry again, they start putting all their insulin receptors down into the bloodstream. Then the insulin can come and open the doors, and the sugar can move into the cell. What did I say made the cells hungry again? It's going to be on the quiz. Did I tell you there's going to be a quiz? Yeah, the hungry cells got hungry by exercise, physical exercise, walking, running, swimming, biking, getting active. But let's get back to this thing about fat-filling cells. If you're on a good vegetarian diet without any refined carbohydrates, eating all your fats coming from natural plant-based sources like nuts and seeds and avocados, then your risk of diabetes doesn't go up. Notice we say 0% there below the carrots. But if you're getting a lot of fat in your diet, say 46% of calories coming from fat, then your risk of diabetes goes up by 40%. If you're getting a lot of cholesterol and animal fat in your diet, in other words, eating meat and so forth, your risk of diabetes goes up by 60%. You might be wondering, are there any good fats? Well, there's certainly good fats in nuts and seeds, and if you eat nuts 5 times a week, your risk of diabetes compared to the rest of the population goes down. What are the best nuts? Well, probably the ones pictured there, but almonds would top the list. But whatever nuts are available, which nuts are least likely to help you? Peanuts and cashews are least likely to help you. Which are the most likely to help you? Almonds, pecans, walnuts, hazelnuts. Yeah, those would be probably pistachios. Those would be good ones. Now, I'm going to put up a news item here. News item! How are we going to tell the people we found the weapons of mass destruction? A few years ago, the United States was running through Iraq looking for weapons of mass destruction. Never found any, but the general has found them at home. And what are they? Cheeseburgers, French fries, fast foods, yeah. Well, is it true? And were we just being silly here? No, it's true. Statistics show that if you eat out at a fast food restaurant twice a week, not a day, twice a week, just 2 times a week, it raises your risk of diabetes by double. It doubles the risk of diabetes. Yeah. So, pizza, hamburgers, burritos, you name it. You go out to eat and your risk of diabetes goes up. Now, what is it about this fast food that does this? Well, there's a number of things about it, but most of them have a lot of animal products. And if you're looking at just eating meat, 4 ounces per day, like one hamburger, increases your risk of diabetes by 20%. If you're eating some of the more processed meats, such as hot dog, salami, sausage, bacon, bologna, that kind of thing, then it raises your risk of diabetes by 50% if you get just 2 ounces. Just 2 ounces. And on the other hand, if you can switch from using animal protein to using vegetable protein, such as found in beans, it lowers the risk of diabetes by 35%. So choosing your protein source. And you might be wondering, since I said animal products, does that include dairy? Well, statistically, if you can switch from dairy to another type of non-animal-based milk, such as soy milk. It restores kidney function, lowers blood pressure, and improves insulin sensitivity. It lowers your risk of diabetes. So in other words, yes, dairy is part of the problem. And since we don't want the problem, we will avoid those. Another thing that happens is refining foods. And I just want to talk about a comparison here. Notice I have a glass of orange juice on the left, and in the middle of the slide, I have oranges. It's good to have good oranges. It's not good to have orange juice. Why? Well, let's compare what happens to your blood sugar with a comparison of oranges to orange juice. The orange juice has been processed. The fiber has been removed. It's been heated to help make sure it stays good. That breaks down starches into sugar. So really, orange juice looks an awful lot like soda pop when you look at how much sugar it has. Actually, it has more sugar than most soda pops in many cases. And so blood sugar here, we're going to take and drink our orange juice. When we drink orange juice, the blood sugar goes up really high, really fast, and then it comes crashing down into the basement, into the low blood sugar. And then what does the diabetic do? Then what does the person do? They go to the refrigerator and drink another orange juice to pump their sugar back up again. But let's change the picture. Let's eat the orange instead of the orange juice. Let's take an orange that has all of its fiber. It hasn't been processed. It hasn't been filtered. It hasn't been cooked. And the orange will make your blood sugar go up much more slowly. And it'll stay up a long time. And it doesn't go crashing down into the basement. And this is the secret to controlling blood sugar over the long run. Let's just take a whole day and look at a comparison between the average diet people eat and a good diet. So here I have a graph that's got a similar labeling going on. Across the bottom is time, up the side is concentration. This time I'm going to talk about both insulin and sugar, labeled here as glucose in the green, insulin in the red. You see, insulin is what makes your blood sugar go down. And so if we start off the day with a refined cereal breakfast, after all, aren't we refined people? Shouldn't we be eating refined food? Well, you be the judge. And so let's start off with refined cereal breakfast. What would this be like? Well, boxed cereal. Boxed cereal and milk. You know, boxed cereal and milk goes in your bloodstream about as fast as pure sugar. Probably about 93% as fast as pure sugar. And so if I eat refined cereal for my breakfast, my blood sugar is going to go up there in the green. My insulin's going to go up in the red, but it's going to go up really high, really fast, and it's going to go too high, too fast, and it's going to make my blood sugar go down too low. And then I'm going to come to break time, and I might be eating, burger and fries, but it's got a lot of white bread and white potatoes cooked really hot, and so my blood sugars go up really high. Or I might be eating coffee and donuts will make my blood sugar go up really high. Or I might eat, some kind of snack cake, cookies, whatever. My blood sugar goes up really high and down. And then at lunch, I'm eating, maybe burger and fries and who knows what. But anyway, with all this refined food, my blood sugars go up and down and up and down and up and down and up and down all day long. So what do they tell the diabetics? They tell the diabetics, why don't you eat little tiny meals all day long? Like 8 meals a day. And this will make your blood sugar stay really high. And then we'll just keep pushing down on the top of it with insulin or drugs or whatever. And we'll control it. Well, you remember what happened when people used more insulin and drugs, 20% more of them died. So that's a death sentence. You don't want that. And if you're eating little tiny meals all day long, your risk of cancer goes way up. I mean, 2 meals a day is the best for cancer Compared to 2-meal-a-day program, colon cancer risk rises 70% if you're eating 3 meals a day and 90% for 4 meals a day. What's more, each additional snack time increases the risk of colon cancer another 60%. So if you're eating 8 little tiny meals a day, you know, oh boy, okay, so I mean, do the math. Your risk of cancer goes off the charts. And the best meals to eat are, you know, breakfast and lunch. Eating supper increases your risk of having high blood sugars for a whole 24 hours afterwards. Supper is part of the problem. Evening meals are part of the problem. You don't want an evening meal that will make this happen to you. Best off eating breakfast and lunch and drinking water and taking a walk for supper. And that will help control your risk of diabetes. So let's start over the day. Let's start again. This time we'll eat a whole grain, unrefined breakfast, like, you know, maybe granola. That's what I had for breakfast this morning, granola. And it's a whole grain granola. We made it ourselves. It doesn't have a lot of anything else, like no sugar or oil in it. And it has a lot of good nuts and seeds and things like that. And so we're going to eat our whole grain, unrefined breakfast. So I had strawberries and granola for breakfast and a little soy milk on it. And so this will have an effect of just like eating the orange instead of drinking the orange juice. The blood sugar comes up slowly. It stays up a long time. The insulin doesn't overshoot. The insulin doesn't drive the blood sugar too low. And then lunch will come along and we have a fresh vegetable lunch, big salad, and maybe some beans, which would be very good for diabetics. And the blood sugars go up very slowly, stay up a long time. No frantic looking for something at break time to fill the belly to get the blood sugar back up, because the blood sugars aren't down. And this is the secret to keeping the diabetics' blood sugars under control. People on a whole plant food diet don't get hungry between meals. What would it be like not to be tempted with snacks? And so what we're really talking about is whole plant foods. Whole plant food. What do I mean, whole plant foods? Well, here's white rice versus brown rice. You want the brown rice. The white rice will give you diabetes. We're talking brown bread versus white bread. The white bread is going to give you diabetes. We're talking brown pasta instead of white pasta. Brown pasta has a lot more nutrients, has a lot more fiber, has a lot more good things that'll keep you from getting diabetes. We're talking about eating whole fresh fruit, not canned fruit, not processed fruit. We're talking about eating foods as God made them, whole plant foods, not animal foods, cheese, eggs, milk. We're talking about eating things like parsley and peppers and brown bread, not eggs, because eggs aren't a plant food. We're talking about whole plant foods eaten when they're, you know, still unprocessed. Eat the corn on the cob, not the corn flakes, not the corn chips. We want the whole corn. We're talking about eating good salad greens and so forth, not stir-fried with oil. Stir-fried with oil, you're going to get diabetes. Remember, the fats give you diabetes. Oh, you know, a fish is not a plant. A fish is going to give you diabetes. You want whole plant foods. We're talking nuts on the left, which are raw, rather than nuts that are deep fat fried and salted. You want the raw nuts. That would be better. And so you don't want something that is totally not plant food, such as butter, or highly processed, such as margarine. When you process the food, it increases your risk of diabetes 40% for every 50-gram serving. And so we're looking at what will keep you from getting diabetes, eating whole plant foods. For example, replacing refined grains such as white flour products, white bread, white pasta, white tortillas, whatever, with whole grain ones, 100% whole wheat, for example, you reduce your risk of diabetes by 70%. And so whole plant foods keep you satisfied and control your blood sugars. Part of it has to do with the minerals. For example, whole grains have minerals that are a blessing to keep you from getting diabetes. One of those minerals is chromium. And diabetics generally have no tissue chromium. What happened to their tissue chromium? Well, when you eat refined carbohydrates that need chromium to get the sugar into the cells, your body will use up all its chromium supplies, and they're not replenished by the food, and then you can no longer get your sugar into your cells, and you end up diabetic. Well, where do I get my chromium? Whole wheat has 8 times as much chromium as white flour. In other words, one whole wheat dinner roll will give you your chromium, and it would take 8 white flour dinner rolls to get the same amount of chromium. So that's why we have obese people who are still hungry, running around looking for more food to eat because their bodies aren't satisfied, they're malnourished, and they're overweight. And that's why we have so many diabetics. They're eating refined, processed foods, they're eating animal foods, they're eating processed oils, they're eating high-fat foods, and they end up with diabetes. Some people's bodies are constantly crying out for missing nutrients. What food makes your body happier? Food that's high in fiber. Food that's high in fiber protects against constipation, it protects against heart disease and high cholesterol. And fiber slows the rate at which blood sugar moves from the digestive organs into the bloodstream. The body is better at controlling slow changes in blood sugar. People who eat more fiber have an easier time controlling their blood sugars. What would happen if you chose more high fiber foods? Foods that haven't had the fiber removed. I had a lady came to me, she says, I'm pregnant, and as a result of being pregnant, I have gestational diabetes. I have diabetes of pregnancy, and I don't want to take insulin or drugs because I know it'll hurt the baby. What do I do? So we had her start taking a lot of oat bran, a fiber source. We had her getting about a half a cup of oat bran per day. Studies show that if you switch from white bread to oat bran bread, it lowers your blood sugars by 46%. And so we had her start using lots and lots of oat bran. Well, she was a good cook. She would put her oat bran in different foods she made, like granola and like bread and like muffins and everything else. And she totally controlled her blood sugars, never needed any insulin or drugs, delivered a normal baby. And then the gestational diabetes was no longer an issue. So there's other foods that are especially helpful for diabetics. One of those is cabbage. Cabbage consumption reduces blood sugar levels, reduces whole body inflammation. Cabbage consumption is very good at extending your insulin. It makes your insulin go farther, less insulin to do the same job. And this is very important even for type 1 diabetics who've lost their pancreas and ability to make insulin, and type 2 diabetics. So cabbage is next time you go to the supermarket, buy an extra head of cabbage and plan on eating it. You could think of it as an herb. Well, it is a herb, but it's really a food herb. But there's other herbs that are also good for diabetes. And those herbs would be things like citrus leaves. You make a tea out of them. They've been shown to reduce insulin resistance. Bladderwrack, which is really a seaweed type product, or herb, inhibits carbohydrate metabolism, stimulates insulin production, and protects the pancreas. There's rosemary and lemon balm. Rosemary you can buy in most stores, just in the section where they have seasonings. Inhibits carbohydrate metabolism. Astragalus is considered more of a medicinal herb. Reduces beta cell inflammation. Beta cells are your pancreatic cells that make insulin. So it reduces their inflammation so they can work. Red ginseng stimulates beta cell insulin production. And peppermint, and that's for flavor. And it can also help with blood sugar control, interestingly enough. Now, another very important thing for diabetics is not to try to confuse your body on when to produce the insulin. Your body runs on a clock. And the clock is going to run well if you do everything at the same time every day. your body knows how to adjust its clock based on when you eat. And if you eat at the same time every day, the body will know when to produce the insulin to be there for the meal before the meal ever hits. And that way you don't get the high blood sugars. People who eat irregular schedules confuse the body. It never knows when to put out the insulin. You're always behind on figuring that out, and you end up with high blood sugars. Pick a schedule for breakfast, lunch, and supper. You'll find this in a chapter in the book on how do I apply healthy principles in my daily life, chapter 16. And but anyway, you want to be on a very strict schedule. And on that strict schedule, you definitely want breakfast. People who eat breakfast as opposed to those who skip breakfast, those who eat breakfast eat less total calories for the day. They have lower cholesterols, and they have a 50% lower risk of diabetes. And, you know, you want to pick a breakfast like we mentioned earlier, whole grains or whole fruit, or I usually push people to have a large portion of their breakfast as whole unprocessed fruit. And so this will help you to get your blood sugars under control. Now, what did we say made the cells hungry again so they put their insulin receptors into the bloodstream and lower your blood sugar? Oh, yes, it was the exercise, wasn't it? Exercise lowers blood sugar and insulin, helps to control weight, improves your mental outlook too. So get outside and get some activity going. Well, how much exercise do I need? Well, get at least 60 minutes a day. You might be thinking, I don't have an hour to exercise. My day is full. In other words, limit your sitting and your laying to 23 hours a day. Doesn't it help to look at it from the other side? Don't have 60 minutes to exercise, but the rest of the time you have 23 hours to lay around. Oh, yes. And moderate is as good as intense. You don't have to kill yourself. Walking is one of the best. What are the best times to exercise for avoiding diabetes? Well, before meals. Before meals is very good. Like before breakfast, get up in the morning, take a walk, 10 to 15 minutes. That's very helpful. And then after meals, we call it your after meal digestive walk. But this helps control your blood sugars of the meal you just ate. And so this will help with your insulin levels and your blood sugar levels. People who are active reduce their risk of diabetes by 46%. And so if you can't find time to exercise, well, then you'll have to find time to be sick. Now, some people are under stress. A lot of people are under stress. Don't we know it? Men's hearts failing them for fear for looking to those things that are coming on the earth, right? And so psychological stress unbalances the body's hormones, of which insulin is one, and you end up with diabetes. You end up with obesity, especially around your middle, and you end up with cardiovascular disease. These are the issues with stress. So, well, you'll have to find some good stress management. And stress management on our website, we have some videos on stress management. Now, what about sodas? Are they any good? Most of them are sweetened with different types of sugars, one of which is fructose. High levels of fructose, as in sodas, increase your risk of diabetes even worse than regular sugar. There's something about that fructose that's dangerous. Diabetic educators might tell you that, well, it doesn't raise your blood sugar. Well, that's for sure, because you're not checking for fructose when you use your glucometer. When you use your blood sugar test, you're looking for glucose. Glucose isn't fructose. So sneaking a bunch of fructose into your body isn't going to be helpful, because fructose is dangerous, more dangerous than glucose. Glucose is normal. Having a high fructose is not normal. And having a high fructose will give you all the complications of diabetes too. You don't want to try to substitute fructose for glucose and trick your glucometer. That's not going to trick your body. You're going to get sicker yet. I want to talk about drinking water. Water lowers your blood sugar. I mean, it just dilutes it out, right? If you drink water, you can raise your blood volume by 9%. That means your blood sugars can go down by about 9% too. And it also helps to reverse the diabetic peripheral neuropathy, that pain or numbness in their hands and feet. This is one of the few things that's been shown to reverse that. I was working at a hospital where the president of the hospital was troubled that the the employees were becoming patients. The employees were seeing their doctor too much. The employees were utilizing insurance too much, and the insurance company was going to raise the premiums. Well, so he asked the wellness department, what do I do to lower our premiums? What do I do to get our employees to stop going to the doctor so much? What can I do to make them healthier again? Well, the wellness nurse said, well, I have an idea. Let's put free bottled water in all the break rooms and encourage the employees to drink more water. Well, okay. There's a big hospital with lots of break rooms. It cost the hospital $25,000 in water to keep free bottled water in all the break rooms. But at the end of the year, when they calculated their savings on insurance utilization, it had reduced insurance utilization by $240,000. For those employees, that meant less time at the doctor, less time going to the hospital, more time doing what they wanted to do with family and friends. What would happen if you drank more water? Well, what have we been talking about here? Well, what we've really been talking about, excuse me, is the Bible diet. Fruit, grains, nuts, seeds, vegetables, the original diet. This is the diet from Genesis 1:29 and 3:18. I mean, this is the diet God put Adam and Eve on. And it's amazing then that when God, remember we said that when God got the children of Israel out of Egypt, that he told them if they would diligently hearken unto the voice of the Lord their God, he'd put none of the diseases upon them that he had brought upon the Egyptians. You see, if the Israelites had maintained the original diet, if they'd eaten what Adam and Eve ate, if they'd eaten a plant-based diet with lots of good foods, they would not get the diabetes that the Egyptians had. God knows best, doesn't he? Well, in summary, take advantage of everything God put in whole plant foods for you. Whole plant foods. Eat an unrefined, unprocessed, whole plant food diet, high in nutrients, minerals, phytochemicals, fiber, and vitamins. Drink 3 liters of water a day, or 3 quarts, and take the water of life freely. Make sure you're drinking plenty of water to keep the blood moving freely and helps to dilute out the blood sugars. Exercise before breakfast, exercise after meals. Keep those cells hungry for sugar. And lean toward your ideal body weight. Keep yourself from getting overweight. Don't eat too much. You understand now why I titled the talk Diabetes the Butter or Fat with the Sweet? It's the fat that'll give you diabetes faster, but it's the sugar that gives you complications. I mean, the sweet will make you fat too, but the butter is part of it, and the mixture of the butter and the sweet definitely leads toward diabetes. Now, if you go to our website, www.rev14.com, and you look down that left-hand column there, you'll see that we have presentation handouts about halfway down. Those presentation handouts will include a handout for this lecture. We have newsletters with lots of interesting topics. We have Make a Donation tab here. You can watch videos online, other videos that we've done. We have recipes that you can look up, and we have different topics that are available. Also, there's our YouTube channel, and we also have another tab there that I don't have in this picture, which is Zoom topics, such as this one here we're doing here today. And if you scroll down, you'll see our book, and And this is the book here. And of course, in the table of contents, the first chapter is diabetes. And that's why we're doing this topic today, as we're taking it the first 4 chapters of the book we'll be going through. All right, I'm going to turn off the show here. I'm going to unshare the screen and come back to Zoom. All right, back to you, Dawn.
Thank you very much, Dr. Clark. That was a quite interesting presentation. But I would like to do something you did not do at the very end. I would like to take us back to that very same website. That's before we take questions. Okay. Dr. Clark is very, very nice. I will share my screen with you. And what I will do is to show you that Dr. Clark and his family, they have this very, very selfless ministry. I'm emphasizing that, because God is a selfless God. You want to know the evidence of God in something? Look at what transpires over time. So Dr. Clark and his family have given up everything that the world would have offered, and they're doing their ministry selflessly. But the ministry would definitely need support. And therefore, he didn't say this, but I'm going to say this. You can contribute or donate towards his ministry. You go on a website, the very same website, Northern Lights healtheducation.com, and you will see the various information here, how you can contribute or donate towards this ministry to keep it going. Dr. Clark has been teaching and lecturing and doing various presentations on various platforms around the world. It takes time, and the ministry has to go on. Even the book that he has written, and he's now making it available, PDF, etc., in various languages. I'm not certain, no, he didn't say that, but in various languages, so that those in various parts of the world can actually hear and be taught and be empowered using this information in their language. So don't forget, you can visit his website, northernlightshealtheducation.com. Okay, he did not tell me to do this. I'm just doing it because the ministry needs to continue. All right, those in Australia, you can support. And this is the information. You can hit the donation button.